Good evening and welcome back to another episode live on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. And it's quite depressing getting to do this, so much so that Callum's disappeared. He's gone to the 1975 gig in Glasgow, but I am delighted to join me tonight is Johnny Main all the way from Cork. Johnny, welcome to the show and welcome to the other side of the mic, of course, a regular listener to the show.
Thanks, Glenn. Is thanks the right thing to say when we're going to be discussing such depressing subjects? But thanks for having me on anyway. And I've been probably needing this all day, to be honest, because it's been going round in my head all day.
Yeah, I think what's more impressive that you've managed not to take the dram into the studio with you as well.
It's only water. It's only water.
Only water, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Maybe a few of you need a dram after last night's humiliating performance. I think it's safe to say, Johnny, is that strong enough word?
Yeah, absolutely. If you lose 5-0 to anyone, it's humiliating, isn't it? I mean, Tynecastle was bad. We can have an argument about whether this was worse. I probably think Tynecastle was probably worse, given that United were bottom at the time. But yeah, humiliating is definitely fair.
Yeah, and I think, when me and Callum spoke after the semi-final on the live on Monday night about looking to take some level of performance that we saw against Rangers, albeit we didn't get the result, but we saw a kind of committed performance. We were hoping to see some of that last night against Hearts, despite, maybe the injuries and the bit of depletion that we thought may have come. But in the end, only 2 changes to the starting lineup from Sunday. Was there a bit of surprise? Were you surprised to only see 2 changes from the effort that was put in on Sunday?
Yeah, I was. I think maybe I was expecting to see Clarkson maybe not starting the way he came off. But then I think he comes off most games anyway with fatigue. I just felt there would be a few more changes just because of the way that the game ended and the pitch and everything that has been said before. But yeah, I was a bit surprised by that, but I was quite heartened when I saw it, and I was looking forward to the game actually all day. I thought this will be a real cracker, and how wrong can you be?
Yeah, well, Aberdeen, hold my beer. I think I was a bit surprised to see Johnny Hayes in there, given the kind of way he was dealing with him injury. Certainly in extra time, he looked very much leggy. And of course, there had been some rumours pre-match that Keller Rose was going to miss the match, and subsequent rumours. I'm not sure. I know you listened to Jim Goodwin's press conference today, so I don't know if he confirmed that. But the rumour was that Kelrose is now facing 3 months out on the sideline with a thigh injury. Some folk have said knee injury as well. Maybe questions around the medical staff and why he was allowed to continue further on Sunday if the injury was so severe. But a bit of a blow, but also allowing Joe Lewis to get his first start of the season. Dude, I definitely hope that went better.
Yeah, I think Joe would have been really wondering what he'd done to deserve that last night. But yeah, we'll come on to that, I'm sure. But yeah, Rose not getting in. I think there was rumours about it being 10-week injury or something like that. I can't remember from my notes whether Jim mentioned it actually in his presser, but I think it's a thigh muscle injury he's got. So I wasn't too bothered by that though, to be honest. Again, more fool me. But I thought, Joe Lewis will come in and he knows the way around and it'll be okay. Well.
But, I mean, how much can we blame last night on Joe Lewis? We can't really. I mean, poor Joe must be wondering what he's got to do to improve those stats. I think it was 6 shots on target, 5 goals conceded. But, I mean, other than the last goal, which I feel he could do better with, he's not really helped with anything else.
Potentially, I think maybe a more confident goalkeeper or a goalkeeper that's started a run of games and is in form comes for the first one and cleans out everybody in front of him, punches it out. But apart from that, there's nothing he can do with the penalty. Obviously, the second goal was a great strike by Smith. The last one, I think, took a deflection as well, which does give him some mitigation for that as well. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I don't put the blame for last night on Joe Lewis at all.
No. Where would you put the blame on last night? Would you say Jim Goodwin takes a lot of the blame, or do some of the players? Because I was on Radio Scotland earlier on lunchtime, and as much as I want to blame Jim Goodwin again for another disappointing defeat on the road, I think some of the players need to take a long, hard look at themselves. You know, Johnny Hayes in his pre-match conference said that the work had already begun on studying Hearts. Ross McCrory, I think, in his post-match conference pretty much was word for word in what he said after Kilmarnock. So for me, there's a continuation, manager and players. We're not learning from previous defeats. I know you highlighted Tannadice already, but Easter Road's another one that I know sticks out for you as a sore one. So
with Easter Road, I mean, in isolation, last night you would put the blame squarely at the feet of the players, but I think there's a mentality issue that's at the core of the squad, and I think we're far too soft. I don't know if we had any yellow cards last night,
I think
but I didn't see anybody.
Scales got booked last night.
Did they? Okay, I must have missed that because I just thought that we just let them walk around and have their own way. And the Jambos were olaying in the midway through the second half, which isn't what you want to see, is it? I mean, to be honest, it's humiliating enough, but when you're letting them just take the piss out of you, there's the first swear word. In that way, I just think it's not a good look. The players take a lot of the blame for last night, of course. Individually, I'd call out Scales, McCrory at the back, who were dreadful. Coulson, who's potentially at fault for 3 of the goals. But looking beyond that, I mean, the mentality of the team has to be in question because we've seen them fold at Easter Road under duress. So there were mitigating circumstances, but they didn't show any spine, right? So they just collapsed in the second half. Tannadice, they collapsed under pressure. United were well up for it. They fancied it. And again, Hearts last night, they were well up for it. And we just weren't.
And that's concerning. But as Skokeskar, a regular viewer here on our YouTube channel, says, having no defenders also has to take the blame. That's on the manager. Yeah. I'd also put that a little bit on recruitment as well. Again, Jim Goodwin saying he was hoping to get somebody in. It didn't work out. I'm wondering if that was Kevin Long who opted for Birmingham instead. But you also can't account for your captain being stupid in a semi-final to then get yourself suspended. And as Forbes McFarlane also says, 3 of our back 4 were not defenders. So we all know where the problem is. And that's the worst thing. We as fans can all see the problem. And I think, I can't remember if it was you last night that pointed out as well on Twitter that of the starting defenders, I'd probably put that in inverted commas, none of them are permanently signed at the club. The only permanent defender in the matchday squad last night was Jayden Richardson, and he can't even get into the starting 11. No,
Matty Kennedy's keeping him out at right back, which tells you all you need to know about where he is at the moment. In the pecking order, Matty Kennedy is not a right back. Ross McCrory is not a centre back. Liam Scales isn't our player, and Hayden Coulson's not our player. I don't know if that's a major issue in the grand scheme of it, but I just think individual. Do you know what I think happened last night? We started okay. It was bizarre. It was a weird game, and I was watching the first 10, 15 minutes thinking we're compact, we're quite good in the ball. Okay, we weren't carving them apart, but we were creating little half chances that we weren't, either they were recovering and taking the ball off us, or there were a couple of times where I was thinking just have a shot and they were trying to walk the ball into the box. And then we lost the first goal and it just went to complete shit after that. We collapsed. I think they lost a lot of the air went out of the team with that scrappy first goal, calamity first goal.
Yeah, and the calamity of the first goal was almost a carbon copy of the goal that we conceded at the death up in Dingwall. And again, I go back to the point that we're not learning. Okay, this was a lot earlier in the game. You could maybe credit some of the Ross County concession to a bit of tiredness coming in right at the death, but we shouldn't have been in that in that spot. And it just is not a good look for a defence that's easy to fix. And when you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. And really, all the goals, well, penalty aside last night, are not a good look from an Aberdeen point of view. And I think, as you said to me half an hour into the game last night, so that's how long before I actually got home, and you said, "Oh, we're actually playing well here. I don't understand the score." And I know there's a couple of Hearts fans in the comments who have said similar. And Brune said to me as well, at 2-0, he said, "We're right in this game here." And I think by the time he'd pressed send, I think it'd then gone 3-0. So um, was that genuinely how you felt, that we were playing well, but the scoreline was just bewildering of our play?
I thought we were playing okay. Yeah, I thought we weren't, like I said, we weren't carving them open. I wouldn't have said Hearts were troubled overly by anything we did. And the only time we actually had a clear-cut chance was when it was 4-0 just before half-time, when Miofsky probably should have scored with a shot inside the box. But I don't think... Yeah, we were, like I say, we were compact. We're knocking it about quite well. Shinnie made a couple of runs from the midfield. We were thinking, this is okay. We had a bit of spell of pressure. A few balls into the box, came to nothing as usual. But I just thought there was Hearts didn't really have to do anything to go in front. And it wasn't just to go 1-0 up. They didn't really have to do anything to go 3-0 up, which was really concerning, because we just gave away 3 goals in quick time. And then the fourth came, I think, just before half time.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was game over. And at that stage, I'm like, how bad could this get? And it could have been worse, because before it got to 5, Shanklin hit the post a couple of minutes before that. And it was like, so this could be a serious doing. Probably the fact that Hearts have got their neighbours at the weekend has probably saved us from an absolute doing. Just really depressing, really.
Yeah, and it's a real kind of confidence knock, not just to the fans, but I'm sure the players are going to have a lot taken out of them mentally, obviously, from the weekend, and then that is further misery. And as I said, we're going to come on to the Darvel game a little bit later, but it all just is brewing up horribly to think about the worst case scenario for Monday night. But even the second goal is once again just another absolute shit show. There's no way other to describe it.
Well, the first thought I had when the ball was played over the top, I saw where Michael Smith was and I saw where Coulson was, and I thought, he has to be offside. He's miles offside. How does he get that much room?
Yeah.
And the flag didn't go up, as they don't tend to go up anyway. So I'm thinking, VAR will sort that out. He's bound to be offside, right? And then I saw the replay, I think there was one replay, and he was miles onside. And I'm just thinking, how does Michael Smith, and he bombs up and down the right for Hearts, right? He's well known for doing it. How does Coulson let him get that far behind him? It's a good diagonal, but it's just a long ball up the park. And we're so open at the back. Good first touch by Smith, takes him in towards goal. And he's to be fair to him, it's a good finish. He had a lot to do. It wasn't a case of, exactly. He had a lot to do. It wasn't a case of, he just could walk it in. He did what he needed to do really well. So credit to him for that. But he shouldn't have been anywhere near that open in the first place.
No, and Hayden's dad was brutally honest last night, messaging us on the page, as he often does after games, to admit his son didn't play well. And we were, only a few days ago, me and Callum were speaking about how well we, in our opinion, thought Hayden had done defensively at Hampden. And I thought that was one of his better games from a defensive point of view. But just a few days later, that is kind of our weakness just now with our fullbacks. They are so intent on going forward, they don't do the basics. And that was kind of the thing that I'd highlighted about Hayden, even on his debut, when everyone said, "Oh, he's looks good going forward." I was like, we signed him as a defender.
Yeah. Do you think, thinking back last night, Hearts targeted that side, right? So they clearly thought he was a weak link. I think the Rangers in the first half on Sunday most of what they did well was coming down that side with Tavernier
Yeah.
and Sakala. It's almost like this is going to be a focus for all the opposing teams now. He can be got at. He's going to have to just improve his defending. Going forward, I love him. I think he looks like a great player. He's got a nice wee trick. But again, Wednesday night, January at Tynecastle isn't the place to be doing fancy tricks.
No, and it's quite disappointing because you've gone from being targeted down the right-hand side that now sees Matty Kennedy as your starting right back to now the opposition, as you say, finding our weakness to be the other side. And unfortunately, Jack McKenzie for the second game in a row doesn't even make the matchday squad. So we don't even have a left-sided defender to come in and cover that because Johnny Hayes is being played as a winger. Liam Scales needs to be in there as a centre back. And you can't even go and move Liam Scales to left back because that would mean your centre back pairings Anthony Stewart and Ross McCrory. And God help us.
Well, Jack McKenzie, Goodwin said in his press conference today that Jack McKenzie's picked up quite a bad injury. Those were his words, I think. So it'll be a while before we see Jack in action, I reckon. So again, that doesn't help the depth in that position, which is really bad anyway. But I think Scales in the League Cup groups played left back in a couple of games. I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure he did. I know the level's slightly different, but I don't know. I think he's far better in the centres. I think McCrory's better at right back.
And it's kind of interesting now. You're back. The joys of doing these lives. You froze a bit here. Now, Greg, he is a Hearts fan, and he says if the Dons can get 2-3 defenders and a new goalkeeper with Rose out, you definitely can still finish fourth. You can tell he doesn't support as if he thinks we can still finish fourth. I think the league will be similar to last year from fourth down to the 10th. Do we trust Goodwin?
No.
No, shaking your head there.
It's not just Goodwin. I don't trust the team to be consistent enough to get fourth.
But and the also thing is, I also don't trust us to get what Greg mentions there, the 2-3 defenders in plus a new goalkeeper in what's that, 12 days. There's just too much to do.
Read the rooms yesterday as well, Glenn, from what Dave Cormack put on Twitter. The day of a pretty crucial game, basically saying it's the same every January. It's a difficult window. We know that anyway, but I kind of took that to mean don't be expecting any more coming in this window.
Don't be expecting the numbers that we hope. And as Jamie Watt says, unfortunately, other left back, who as Chris pointed out in the comments as well, Mason Hancock started a couple of the games in the League Cup at left back. He's unfortunately come back from his loan spell at Arbroath with a serious knee injury. So I think his chances of playing this season are gone. And just as well, we didn't loan the only other centre back we've got out to Kelly Hearts. That would have been embarrassing.
We did.
Could be the shortest loan spell in history at the rate we're going. But controversy is never far from Scottish football, Johnny. Especially in recent weeks with VAR, especially as we discussed on Monday night, being very much in the limelight. And Hearts and VAR are two things that seem to go hand in hand like Rangers and getting penalties at Ibrox just now, because boy, are they benefiting from some lovely decisions of VAR just now. Because, I mean, how the fuck they decide that that's a penalty on Liam Scales last night, but don't give the penalty on, I think it was Rolls on Friday night. I mean,
no idea, but be guaranteed that we won't be hearing an explanation from the SFA. I don't know what the rules are. I was looking at it thinking, well, 3 months ago, I'd have said that's a definite penalty. Just because of the way the refs and VAR were interpreting that. But I would say there's two spring to mind similar, and one of them was, I think, Goldson at Tannadice, and the other is Rolls against St Mirren. So that was more of a similar. So the ball had travelled a long way over, and Rolls actually is not jumping for the ball. He's on the ground and his arm's not by his side. And although he's trying to pull his arm away from the ball, it's incidental or accidental contact, the same as Scales last night.
Yeah.
Except the difference is Scales is actually in the air. You jump with your arms, you use your arms as leverage. How on earth the ref and VAR decide that that's not a natural movement, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what the rules are, and I don't think they do either, which is more worrying.
No, and that's the thing, and it's frustratingly what we want to see. We've not had a kind of over issue with VAR and offsides, because offside is offside. Yes, it's a bit frustrating if it's the big toe or something like that, but these penalty decisions in the handball, there's so much inconsistency around it. It's leading to huge frustration. And look, I'm not saying if Hearts didn't get that penalty last night, we come back. I think as soon as a team scores 2 against us, I just don't ever see us getting back into the game. Just now, going back to the point you make about mentality, but when you're speaking about this race for European spot and third place, if that's the trophy that we're going for this season, you need these decisions to be consistent at the end of the day. But Jay Moyer makes a point as well here about, we make it sound as if it's rocket science. There's sob stories about the injuries and tiredness that Jim Goodwin comes out. I think this goes back to the point that you made earlier, Johnny. It comes down to mentality, because as Jay says, look at Livy, absolutely nothing to work with, but they put in more effort than we do.
Correct.
Is that a fair assessment there from Jay?
It seems to be. I mean, I watch every game, and so do you. And Livy haven't got the same level of talent that we have. I'm not saying there's a massive gap. But there is a gap, and they work hard, and they know what they're good at.
Yeah.
And when we've been good this year, we've been pretty good, and I've been quite happy with it. This is what's frustrating, I think, about the whole season, is we've seen how good they can be, and we just can't put a run together of consistent results. I'm going to come on now to, we came into the game off the back of another defeat, albeit it was in a semi-final, and it was a close run. It wasn't a close run. I suppose it was a close run. I think it was 2-1, but we didn't win anything. We beat St Johnstone the previous week. It's nothing to write home about. That's just, in the words of Roy Keane, that's his job. That's our job, is to beat the teams like that at home.
Yeah.
So we didn't come into the game. I don't know why I was thinking we might get a point or even better last night, because this is what this team is, isn't it? They have this kind of performance in them, and I just don't think it's acceptable or sustainable.
I take it as well, the way Jim Goodwin spoke about the Ross County game in terms of ending that run of negative results, getting that clean sheet. Is it almost a sense that coming across now, when we look back on the events of last night and Sunday, that Ross County draw, albeit stopping the rot, following it up with a win over St Johnstone, has really papered over a lot more cracks than we were really feeling?
Not for me, maybe for some, and because we did go toe to toe with Rangers, and those are the words that came out of Mick Beale's mouth after the match, not mine. We did put it up to them, and we beat St Johnstone. I suppose people are kind of saying, "Oh, well, we might have turned a corner here," but for me, I was never sold on Goodwin going into this game, right? So I wasn't like. But I'm accepting of the fact that he's probably going to be here for the season.
Yeah.
And now after last night, it adds. How many of these can we stomach as a club before something's done? I don't know.
I think as well, it's not even as a club, it's as a fan base. I wasn't at the game last night. You weren't at the game last night either, and I don't know how audible it was on the TV, but certainly the Hearts fans that I know that were at the game said, it's bad when your own players are being booed onto the pitch for the second half. And I think that also is kind of a damning statement of where we are just now in terms of the support. Because once again, the away end was sold out last night. I know only 600 tickets, but regardless,
Thank
you're in the
God
middle
for
of
them.
January.
Thank God it was only 600. I mean,
Well, very, very true.
I
But
think there were some
again,
folk moaning about the allocation, but I'll bet you they were all going, thank God it didn't go down there on a Wednesday, freezing cold in January.
I know, but I'm sure we've got a big support set to go to Darvel, albeit with the comical nature of the view that's being sold to the
It'll
fans.
settle out. We know it will.
Yeah, and then we've got another trip coming up at the end of the month back to the capital, which again puts the fear into me as well that this
It
run
shouldn't
isn't
do.
gonna. It shouldn't. But,
Hibs
but
are just as bad as we are.
but that's sadly where we are, especially away from home just now. And
Yeah.
at 3-0, you think, right, just get yourselves into half time, regroup, make some changes. But no, we concede again on the stroke of half time. And then Jim Goodwin doesn't make any changes at half time. I mean, surely after all that was gone through on Sunday, the game's gone as well. You start protecting players.
Yeah, to be honest, I was so angry at that point. I didn't even really notice there was no changes for the second half, and then a sub came on almost immediately.
Yeah.
So, judging by the way Goodwin reacted last night in his post match, he maybe was a bit shell shocked as well and forgot to make the subs. Because I mean, I can't understand. You're going in 4-0 down. The game's done. Just make all your subs then. I mean, give Mislovic 45 minutes. Maybe he doesn't have 45 in his legs.
No.
Do you know, Vinny Bozowen, what does he have to do? I mean, I'm not saying he's the answer, but Johnny Hayes was dreadful last night. Absolutely dreadful. He gave it away every time he touched the ball. He gave it away.
Yeah.
And he's been a great servant and all those caveats. But last night it was just abysmal, and I was amazed he lasted as long as he did. To be honest, because I would have had him off before half time. He was that bad. But yes, the fourth goal was a decent move actually. I think it was Michael Smith played it into the channel for Shankland, Coulson's side again. Coulson was higher up the pitch. Scales had to come over to cover Shankland. Didn't close him down enough. Cross comes in. And Ginnelly with a good finish. Fair play. It was a decent goal, but a really sloppy one from our perspective. Again, defensively not tight enough, not organised. Again, another defensive disaster.
Yeah, and I suppose, again, it goes down to defensive disasters, but teams aren't having to work hard in a sense to score against us because we're almost gifting them goals. That, as you said, was a good move from a Hearts point of view, but when it comes to the final product, we make it easy.
Well, what I will say in Hearts is, in the debit column for Hearts is that, or the credit column, should I say, that they were clinical. They took every chance they were given.
Yeah.
They were very ruthless. So, you have to give them credit for that, but we made it so easy for them. They didn't have to work. They didn't have to be good. I mean, we have to apologise as well to Hibs for basically giving them a nice wee training game before the Cup, because that was abysmal.
Yeah, Michael Monin, of course, friend of the show, tweeted me, WhatsApped me at halftime, and he said, "Any chance you could actually try in this game?"
Maybe getting about them and cause a few injuries or something. I don't know, but just that's the thing. Again, we didn't put yourself about as Again, just go through somebody. Just show you care. Show you're hurting, and that's maybe a bit of a Stone Age viewpoint, but we just didn't seem to be up for it at all. And even when we're getting humiliated, you think somebody would go. I think Ramadani was getting very frustrated with Colin at one point. I don't know if he was booked in the end, but He, I think, had to be calmed down a couple of times. I think he lost the plot last night in some way. But yeah, he's the only one who really showed any passion. The rest of them were dreadful.
No, and I think that's a good point, because I think, even in the manner of defeat last night, I totally agree. You want to see the players out there look like they actually care about wearing the shirt, care about those that have made the effort to travel down, and those that were brave enough, stupid enough is maybe the right word without offending people, to
Yeah.
stay until the bitter end in that away end last night, because they deserve better from what especially anybody that tunes into this show. If you've traveled to every away game over the last calendar year and so far in 2023, I mean, you've definitely deserved better than what's been served up. And unfortunately, things didn't get better in the second half. Hearts, as you said, hit the post before eventually getting a fifth through no help from our own defence. And does that fifth and final goal show why Ross McCrory needs to be either at right back or into our midfield, because he is not a centre back?
I have at fault for that goal Coulson initially for not dealing with the bouncing ball and not being strong enough. He's probably the least to blame. Devlin basically picks Shinnie's pocket and gets the breaking ball. Shinnie tries to get back, doesn't manage to get back. Scales, powder puff, pathetic. Devlin just wanted it more. Devlin just showed all of them. McCrory again, backing off Devlin as Devlin approaches our box.
Yeah.
When are you going to put a tackle in? You're just inviting him to shoot when you're on the edge of your box. And again, it's just Hearts wanted it so much more than we did, which is pretty unforgivable considering what was at stake last night. I'm not bothered personally by league positions if it's not first. Third is third, but I am bothered by the potential of them getting further ahead in terms of finances, group stages of the Conference League or whatever it is, and us missing out again, which it seems like we're in real danger of doing.
Yeah, and I suppose I want to come on to that, but I just want to pick up a point on, the point you made about Scales being powder puff. Anthony Stewart's come in for a lot of criticism, rightly or wrongly, however you may feel on that. I know a lot of you will feel rightly. But in the games that he's missed through suspension, Scales has totally failed to step up to the mark as the main defender in that team. Now, whether that's because he can't cope with the pressure of dealing with, not a defender on his right-hand side in Ross McCrory.
Being the senior defender, I suppose you could say, or being the only defender in the back four.
But I guess that's why he's with us and not fighting for a place in the Celtic first team after all. And is Scales the answer then?
If you're looking for him to be a leader, it would appear not, no, because as you say, he doesn't make the step up when he needs to in the back four when Stewart's not there. Now, Stewart has had criticism. I'm not backward in coming forward about that as well. But one criticism you can't level at him is he's not powder puff. He would get stuck in and do what needs to be done as a defender. I suppose that's his game. The question I have about Stewart is more about why we signed him if we want to play out a certain way. But that's one for Jim Goodwin to answer another day. But yeah, we did lack. Like I say, we were too soft. We were just too nice. And that's when you're at Tynecastle, you don't get anything for free anytime. And they're in pretty good form at the moment as well, on a decent run. And to illustrate how decent the run is, I think I noted on Twitter last night, 6 league games ago, just before or just at the break, we were 4 points ahead of Hearts. Now, I think they had a game in hand going into that break. So let's say 1 point ahead if you give them the 3 points for the game in hand. And now we're 9 points behind them 6 games later. And that just this is the meat of the season in terms of the league places, and we've just given ourselves too much to do. And even if we were playing well and we kind of felt that we'd put a run of 8 games together, even then it might not be enough. I just can't see us doing that.
Yeah, and that's the point that I was actually going to come on to next, was that tweet that you put out about how we've pretty much gone from having the fate of European football in our own hands 6 games ago to just really throwing it away. There's no other way of saying it. We have thrown it away, and it's now not in our hands, because we're now 9 points, as you say, behind Hearts. But as I said to you last night, I really feel it's 10, because that was a 10-goal swing last night. I think we've now knocked our goal difference into the minus category as well, and Hearts are now sitting on plus 11, I believe it is. So really, I think that gives them an extra point. You've got Livingston, who currently occupy 4th in the league, 2 points ahead of us, I believe it is, with a game in hand, who, of course, their game was postponed last night against Dundee United. You would have expected them to pick something up, albeit Dundee United have maybe turned a slight corner in form. But again, even if they pick something up, that's them 3 points ahead of us. You also got St Mirren breathing down our necks with a game in hand, level on points. They come to Pittodrie in 2 league games' time, I think it is. So there's a lot of pressure on this squad. Again, going back to that mentality and character side of things that you've spoken about, Johnny. Does this squad, does this manager have the mentality, have the character to fight for, I was going to say fight for 3rd, but right now it feels like fight for 4th and get that European football? Because I totally agree with the point you made. We cannot afford to let, if Hearts get into Europe, we cannot afford to miss out again 2 seasons in a row.
No way. I think it's just reminded me while you were talking, another thing he said in the press conference today, which makes me feel less optimistic that he thinks we can get 4th. He did mention this is a transition season, and we've got a very young squad, etc., etc. And we've heard, and that's a fact. We do have the youngest squad in the league, I think. But by the same token, I don't know if there's anybody outside the top 2 that have invested as heavily in the squad in the last 6 months as we have, right? Yeah. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say this is a transition season and we've got a young squad whilst getting backing from the chairman. So it kind of worries me that Jim Goodwin maybe thinks not finishing 4th, maybe top 6 will be okay. And I don't think that's the case at all. If you look at the level of investment compared to St Mirren, Livingston, the teams you just mentioned, we should be, and they've probably had a high turnover of players as well. Let's not be around the bush. These teams kind of have to rinse and repeat every year anyway. But Martindale has Livy playing to a certain way and fighting for each other, and I think Robinson at St Mirren are quite an underrated team, I feel. But saying that, we should still be finishing above them over a league season, over the course of the league season. So to be in this position where we're now in the end of January and looking over our shoulder or above us even to St Mirren and Livingston isn't really acceptable. And we can have excuses, and the manager has his excuses, but that's what they are. They're just excuses, and I'm sorry. And it's Aberdeen. You're not at St Mirren now. You're at Aberdeen. We don't expect. You've had your transition. You've had time to bed the players in, right? They are your players. He did admit last night in his immediate post-match on BBC that this is his team and it's on him, which is perhaps the first sign that it is starting to get to him a wee bit. But he's not going to get the time that he thinks he is. Well, not with the fans anyway.
No,
and I think that's the real crux of it. And last night it didn't change my feeling about him as the manager. Tannadice was my tipping point.
Wow.
And, if people have a go at me for that, it's fine. But that was my tipping point. You don't tend to come back from defeats like that as an Aberdeen manager.
No.
Nothing I've
Not
seen
when you
changes
not
my mind.
Yeah, and not when you consistently offer performances like Tannadice we saw against Kilmarnock and then repeat a performance and scoreline one worse, obviously, last night as well.
Forgotten about Kilmarnock. I'd completely forgotten about Kilmarnock.
Sorry to bring that back up to you, but as Paul Donaldson says, good to have you with us, Paul, tonight. I think it'll be a fight to finish in the top 6, never mind qualifying for Europe. And right now, it probably does feel a little bit like that, given where we are in the league and with how close it is with the teams around us. And as Sculpture says, hire a manager who's never finished out the bottom 6. We can't complain where we are heading for a bottom 6 finish right now. I still expect this squad is good enough to finish in the top 6. It's just, unfortunately, with the tightness of the league, one bad result or one run of bad results suddenly drops you straight down into that kind of the glob, as the terrace would call it.
Yeah.
And it's whether or not this squad has the fight to get out. And especially when you've got signings as Kaiser as well. Good to have you along, Kaiser, always regular in the comments. What's happened to Shaden Morris? Another Goodwin signing, nay, up to the standard. And probably file that under Callum Roberts, although maybe a bit harsh on Callum given he's been injured as well. But hopefully we'll see him in a week to 10 days, as Goodwin says, and really see what he can offer to this squad in the forward role and at least give us another option off the bench.
Right, it is a good point that he's making there, because if you look at the right side of our team last night, Bazowin's nowhere to be seen. Hayes is playing on the right.
Yeah.
Jaden Richardson is a Goodwin signing. Matty Kennedy's playing right back, not a Goodwin signing. Right? You've got all the players. So we have, and Shaden Morris, the forgotten man, apparently, who can't get a start. Wonder, now we're not going to hit the target every time with recruitment.
No.
We know that. I think it's been said before. But if we're bringing in Richardson, it's Richardson and Morris I'm really looking at here. They're the one. They should have been playing right back and right. In Hayes' position last night, Morris should have been playing if they were up to standard. It just smacks of if those two just haven't worked out, and I don't know if they ever will.
And the concerning thing is the amount of money that we've spent on.
Well, we paid a fee for Morris, which is wild to me.
Yeah, and I think there was rumours linking us with a move for Bailey Wright, the Sunderland right back. There's been rumours around another right back coming in. I still think just now we've got a stopgap in Matty Kennedy and or Ross McCrory. Centre back for me is much more of a priority. But before recording or coming live, I should say, tonight, I did see a rumour that former Hibs goalkeeper Matt Macy has been linked with a return north of the border, of course, with Aberdeen in the market for a backup goalkeeper. So I'm sure the Hibs fans and Hearts fans, if they're still tuning in, will be licking their lips at the prospect of him signing for us.
Yeah, it doesn't really get the blood flowing, does it?
No, it doesn't. As you said, Tannadice was your tipping point.
Yeah.
Where does last night leave you in the whole Jim Goodwin situation? And if he sees out the January transfer window, does he stay till the end of the season, or do you think Cormac has the ball to sack him before the end of the season?
I could be wrong, but I think if he survives today, which it looks like he is, he'll get the rest of the season, unless we get pumped out next week in the cup. I think that would be one too many. It was one too many a while ago for me. But again, I'm a fan. I'm not the chairman. It's probably just as well, to be honest.
We're changing managers every week.
So from my point of view, nothing's changed. I think Goodwin still, if he's going to get the time, which it looks like he is, He needs to prove that he can turn it around on the pitch. And I think he said as much today in his presser. The fans are fed up with words. Yeah, we are. We have been for a while. We want you to show us on the park. And by that, by showing us on the park, I don't mean beating Darvel. I mean going on a run of 5, 6, 7 games, undefeated, winning the majority of them, trying to put a bit of a gap between us and St Mirren and Livy in the league. That's pretty critical. And Hibs, if Hibs are going to, I don't know how. I haven't looked at the table to be honest. But Hibs are also there.
I think they're 11 with us.
Oh, are they? Brilliant. So there we go. So yeah, there's Hibs, there's St Mirren and Livy. People expect them to drop off. I wouldn't be so sure. We just need to put some form together, and our form is, I think, it's the second worst in the league at the moment.
Yeah, it is, and as you said, we need to go and put a run of wins together, starting 100% with Darvel. But as Pedros 73 says, can you see us winning 3 games in a row in the league? He followed it up with saying, I can't. And
not at the moment, no.
No, and our next 3 league games are Hibs away, St Mirren at home, and Motherwell at home. And that home double header for me really is make or break, in my opinion, for Goodwin's tenure if he even survives that long, because after that it's a trip to Parkhead, and I think you might as well write the headlines there, because that game always seems a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, we won't get anything from that. I take it one step further. We need to get something at Easter Road. We can't afford to lose that game and win the next 2 at home, which we should be doing anyway. We need to do something over and above what we expect, as a standard result. So that means going to Easter Road and getting a result. I wouldn't bet on it at the moment, but we need to do it. And I'm not worried about Darvel. We should not, as a club, be worried going into Monday. I know that sounds silly, but if we are, then we're in big trouble.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's look ahead to Monday night. And well, you said you're not worried. I don't know if Greg Playfair is tuning in, but as he said to me last night on Twitter, he said this could be Aberdeen's Brora moment, of course, referring to the fact that Hearts went up to Brora a few seasons ago in the Scottish Cup and got beat. I, to be honest, feel the exact same as you, but the fact that he said it has put a lot of doubt in my mind. It's really, with the greatest of respect to Darvel, of course, and not wanting to give them a pre-match team talk or any further motivation, it really is unthinkable that we go down to Darvel on Monday night and lose this game, isn't it?
It is. Although, in my head, I mean, I don't watch any lower league football, any junior football, anything like that. But I'm led to believe the junior league is actually probably of a higher standard than potentially some of the clubs in League 2. So, but again, I can't, even although we are powder puff and we are, mentally all over the place and pretty soft, I can't allow myself to think this is going to be anything other than a win, maybe 2-0, 2-1, whatever it is. And I can't imagine that the players and the manager can go in with any fear. Okay, respect the opposition. Obviously, you respect the opponent. You do your work. But we shouldn't be going down there with any fear.
No.
And that sounds, after last night, that sounds ridiculous. But that's the reality. We have to just perform as Aberdeen and not worry about it. We're not, again, all the greatest respect to St Mirren. He's not managing St Mirren now. It would be a disaster for St Mirren to lose that game at the same time. And you know what you were saying about Brora and Hearts. I think Hearts not top of the championship at that time. I know they weren't exactly pulling up any trees, and their fans were a bit disgruntled, I believe, at the time. And I remember when I saw the score, I wet myself laughing. So the same would probably happen across the country if it did happen. But like I said, it's not going to. Clip that up.
No, I know. Yeah, that's the joys of doing stuff like this
Yeah,
live and on YouTube. It's very easy for folk to clip up and use
yeah,
against you in future. But
sure.
Paul Donaldson says that I can see the game being similar to the Annan Athletic match.
Yeah,
I think we'll win, but they'll take us all the way to extra time. I pray to God that it doesn't go to extra time, because I don't think I could cope with that mentally. And especially the fact that me and Callum, of course, if you are joining us live on YouTube, remember to hit that like button as well. We will be doing a live post-match reaction on Monday night to the Darvel game. Hopefully, all things going well, including covering the Scottish Cup draw for the next round. If we remain in the hat, if not, we will not speak about the draw and just rant
we will.
about
We will,
performance.
Glenn. Be positive.
But you spoke about respect, Johnny.
Yeah.
When we speak about respect and going into this game, how respectful in terms of the lineup do you expect Jim Goodwin to be? Go 100% full strength, or how much rotation do you think there will be, if any?
None. We have to play our best, our strongest available team. And by respect, I mean we have to go there, prepare properly, and play the game as if we're playing at Ibrox or Parkhead, right? And be in their face and be at it. If we match them for effort and passion and desire and all those wonderful words that you
Cliche.
associate with, yeah, then we'll win. It's as simple as that. And if we don't, then I mean, but that's what they should be doing every game. I mean, that's the minimum expectation for Aberdeen or for any team, is that they try, right? And if we turn up and try and do what we should be doing, then it doesn't matter about the pitch or the location or anything like that. We should win the game comfortably.
Yeah, we should still have the professionalism about ourselves to get the job done. But I suppose if you're Darvel, as Graham Duffy puts in the comments here, as I just lost a second, so bear with me and bring it up. Darvel have scored 42 goals in 13 games this season. They're a good side, especially at home. So a team that can be free scoring, good at home, against a team that are not so good away from home and conceding at will. Of course, we
Yeah,
failed to mention the fact that despite that defence being easy to fix, we've currently got the second worst defensive record in the Premiership. With all the problems, if you want to look at it that way, currently going on at Aberdeen, and with our record away from home, Darvel
yeah,
must be thinking, must be excited, there must be something in their mind thinking, you know what, we can cause an upset on Monday night.
yeah. Catch us on an off day. Catch us when we're not at it. Get in our face. They'll be thinking the exact same that I just said that we need to do. Get in their faces. Kick them up in the air first 5 minutes. See how they like it. That's what I
Yeah,
would do.
they're going to do
Um,
that.
Absolutely. So we need to be ready for it, and we need to be giving it back. And if we're not, and if we're sloppy and just not up for it like we were last night, then yeah, there's a chance. And I get the point about they're very good at home, but they're very good at home in the junior league. Yeah, we're very good at home in the Premiership, and yeah, we're dreadful away. You're now getting me thinking because you've just mentioned our away record, and yeah, our
Yeah,
away record is yeah. I think
yeah,
that
and
Guinness
yeah,
has the worst away record of any Aberdeen manager. I think I
yeah.
saw that on Twitter as well.
And I think as well, I think, I saw what is Jim Goodwin's overall stats are. And of course, as someone pointed out, they're heavily inflated by the fact that he's got wins against Stirling Albion, Peterhead, Dumbarton, Wraith, of course, from our League Cup run earlier in the season. And as Pedro73 says, we're in no position to underestimate
No.
anyone. And this did make me laugh from Kaiser on the point that you made about play like we're at Ibrox or Parkhead. And he says, I hope we don't play like we're there because we'll end up getting beat.
Very true.
Um,
Fair point.
and I think, it's one of those, it is a tie that screams banana skin. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, if to go back again, back full circle to the point that you said, if this team has the character, has the mentality that we believe they should do, we should be speaking on Monday night when me and Callum go live at full time about Aberdeen being in the hat for the next round of the Scottish Cup.
No question. It's all about the mentality, and yeah, again, I'm worried now because we've shown we don't have a mentality when teams get in our face. But at the same time, we can't dwell on this too long. We can't let this get in our heads. We just have to go down there, do the job. It'll be probably a really, really muddy pitch. I think if you're going, by the way, I believe it's a grass bank the away fans are going to be on, so take your wellies. And we just have to just go and get the job done. And it's on the BBC for a reason. They think it's a potential banana skin for Aberdeen and a scalp for the non-league team. So we just have to do the job.
Yeah, hopefully we can turn in a first-half performance like Hearts did on Tuesday night and be sitting 4-0 up at half-time, and then we would have said, what were we worrying about, for anyone that did? Like Sculptor have, as he calls it, squeaky bum syndrome ahead of this game. And yes, Chris Fraser put further nightmares into anybody at the end of the show here, saying we don't want a Stenny 95.
I was there, by the way. I was there at that day at Oakville View.
Yeah,
it was pretty bad. Yeah, I was there. I remember it well.
Yeah, and I don't think it is an AstroTurf pitch, Kaiser. I think it is full grass. So, of course, if there is a cold snap over the weekend, it'll be interesting to see if the game even goes ahead, of course, with a frozen pitch, which I'm sure is the last thing that both Darvel and Aberdeen want just now. I think for us, it would be good to get the game played, obviously, providing we get the right outcome and just get a bit of confidence back into some players and the team ahead, of course, of that trip to Hibs next weekend.
Correct. Yeah, we just need to let's go and do our job, please. Just get the win. 1-0 would do me. I don't want 4-0 at halftime. Just 1-0. Nice, calm, collected. Next round. We haven't won the cup for so long. I'm going to mention it now. 1990. Again, I was there. I was 15 at the time. I'm a lot older than that now. So I want us to win the cup. It won't be this year, but we need to be in the next round.
You want the dream that we can do. You want that cup run, and we of course hope that continues past Monday night. And let's hope that we do have a little bit of a fairy tale to dream about in terms of a cup run, because there's too many of us in this Aberdeen support, a current generation that haven't experienced us lifting the Scottish Cup. Of course, we've had cup finals. We won't really delve too much into them. We don't want to depress folk even further. But let's hope we can continue the Scottish Cup quest past Monday. Of course, the game, as Johnny said, is live on the BBC Scotland channel. We will be live again on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel at full time, doing our reaction to that and covering the Scottish Cup draw, all being well. Johnny, absolute pleasure getting you on Red Tinted Glasses, long-time listener and viewer, and of course commenter when we've done lives in the past. I hope you've enjoyed your first experience on being on the other side of the microphone.
Glenn, thanks very much. It's been good fun, despite the subject matter.
Yeah, and thank you, of course, for actually agreeing to still do the show even after the result last night. As always, it's a bit of a therapeutic session.
It's a therapy session that I needed massively to get that out of my system.
Yeah, well, and hopefully those of you that have tuned in live, hopefully the therapy session has helped. And if you're catching up on audio, whether that be walking the dog or sitting at work on Friday getting ready for the weekend, we hope it's helped. Hope you enjoy your weekend. And as we said, we will be back live on Monday night. Remember to check us out on YouTube, leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel. There was a lot of you subscribed on the back of Monday's video, taking us over that 1,200 mark. If you are listening on audio as well, remember to hit that subscribe button, get the notifications on for all future episodes. Until next time, thanks very much for tuning in. We'll see you then.